Leave him alone!
Think you look up at me?
Leave him alone! God damn it! Leave this man alone!
Angelo Dundee spent more than half a century inside boxing's most intense corners. As the mastermind behind legends like Muhammad Ali and Sugar Ray Leonard, he learned to stay calm when chaos erupted. But even Dundee had opponents he genuinely dreaded, not out of petty dislike, but because of the danger, pressure, and emotional toll they brought into the ring.
And again, Rodan is basically fighting on sheer determination.
Here's a deeper look at the 10 boxers Angelo Dundee had the hardest feelings about. Fighters who tested his nerve, strategy, and loyalty to the limit. 1. Joe Frazier. Joe Frazier wasn't just another opponent. He was a force of nature. For Angelo Dundee, preparing Ali to face Frazier meant bracing for a storm that wouldn't stop. Frazier's relentless pressure, bob and weave movement, and devastating left hook created constant danger. He never backed up. He never slowed down. In the 1971 Fight of the Century, Dundee watched Frazier systematically break down Ali with body shots and punishing hooks. From a trainer's perspective, it was frustrating. No matter how sharp Ali's reflexes were, Frazier's aggression kept forcing exchanges. Dundee disliked that kind of fight, one where technical brilliance could be drowned out by raw determination. It wasn't personal hatred. Dundee respected Frazier deeply, but stylistically, he was a nightmare. Frazier turned every second into combat. There was no room for comfort or rhythm. For a strategist like Dundee, that kind of relentless pressure was exhausting and unforgettable. 2. George Foreman. Before the rumble in the jungle, George Foreman looked unstoppable. He had demolished Frazier and Ken Norton with terrifying ease. Dundee later admitted that Foreman's raw punching power was one of the scariest challenges he ever prepared for. What Dundee disliked most wasn't just Foreman's strength, it was the aura of inevitability. Foreman didn't just win, he destroyed. His heavy hands and imposing frame made every punch feel like it could end a career. As a trainer, that kind of threat changes everything. Strategy becomes survival. Dundee knew Ali couldn't trade punches conventionally. That realization forced him to embrace the risky rope, a dope strategy in 1974. Letting your fighter lean on the ropes against one of the hardest punchers in history wasn't comfort. It was calculated desperation. Foreman represented brute force at its peak. For Dundee, that kind of physical dominance was something he respected, but absolutely hated facing. 3. Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston carried more than knockout power, he carried intimidation. When Ali first challenged Liston in 1964, most of the boxing world believed it was a mismatch. Liston's criminal ties, cold demeanor, and crushing jab created psychological warfare before the opening bell. Dundee disliked the unpredictability surrounding Liston. There was tension in the air, rumors, threats, and an atmosphere that felt darker than a typical title fight. As Ali's trainer, Dundee had to shield his fighter from both physical danger and mental pressure. Inside the ring, Liston was clinical. His jab was like a piston, setting up devastating right hands. He didn't waste movement, he imposed control. For Dundee, that disciplined brutality demanded perfect preparation. The victory over Liston remains one of boxing's biggest upsets. But the path to that moment was filled with anxiety. Liston wasn't just an opponent, he was a looming presence, and for Dundee, that kind of looming menace was something he truly despised dealing with. 4. Roberto Dern. Roberto Dern brought chaos wherever he fought. When Sugar Ray Leonard faced him in 1980, Dundee quickly realized Dern's greatest weapon wasn't just his punching power, it was his ability to drag opponents into emotional warfare. Dern taunted, pressured, and fought with raw intensity. He forced exchanges in tight spaces, turning technical bouts into street fights. Dundee hated that kind of environment. Leonard thrived on speed and precision, but Dern thrived on aggression and psychological disruption. The first fight ended in a painful loss for Leonard. Dundee had to regroup, rethink, and restore his fighter's confidence. That rematch, the famous no-M's fight, was as much mental as physical. Dundee respected Dern's toughness, but he disliked how easily he could shift momentum through emotion alone. For a trainer who valued composure, Dern represented combustible unpredictability, and that made him deeply uncomfortable to face. Number 5. Thomas Hearns. Thomas Hearns was a tactical nightmare. Tall, rangy, and armed with one of the most lethal right hands in boxing history, Hearns forced Dundee into one of the most stressful training camps of his career. Preparing Leonard for Hearns meant solving a complex puzzle. Hearns could control distance with his jab and end fights instantly with a single punch. In their 1981 showdown, Leonard was behind on the scorecards before rallying late. From the corner, Dundee had to push urgency without panic. What he disliked about Hearns was that margin for error. One mistake, one defensive lapse, and everything could collapse. Hearns didn't need volume, he needed timing. For a seasoned trainer like Dundee, that kind of sniper-like danger was nerve-wracking. Hearns demanded perfection, and perfection in boxing is nearly impossible. 6. Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes represented something deeply painful for Angelo Dundee. Not just a tactical challenge, but the harsh reality of time. When Holmes faced Muhammad Ali in 1980, Ali was no longer the quick, untouchable genius Dundee once guided. Holmes, on the other hand, was in his prime, sharp, disciplined, and armed with one of the greatest jabs in heavyweight history. Dundee disliked that fight from the beginning. Holmes wasn't reckless. He didn't leave openings. His jab controlled distance like a measuring stick, snapping Ali's head back repeatedly. From a trainer's perspective, that kind of technical dominance is suffocating. There's no chaos to exploit, no wild swings to counter. Just steady, methodical punishment. But what made it worse was the emotional weight. Holmes respected Ali and reportedly didn't even want the fight. Still, once the bell rang, professionalism took over. Watching Ali absorb punishment was heartbreaking for Dundee. Holmes symbolized the end of an era. It wasn't personal animosity, it was grief wrapped in gloves. For Dundee, that made Holmes one of the most difficult opponents he ever had to confront. 7. Wilfred Benitez. Wilfred Benitez was a defensive magician. At just 17 years old, he became the youngest world champion in boxing history, and by the time he faced Sugar Ray Leonard in 1979, he was already known for his ring IQ. For Angelo Dundee, that kind of intelligence created sleepless nights. Benitez didn't rely on brute force. He relied on timing, anticipation, and subtle movement. He could slip punches by inches and counter with precision. Trainers often fear fighters they can't predict, and Benitez was exactly that. Leonard was used to controlling pace with speed and combinations, but Benitez disrupted rhythm. He forced adjustments mid-fight, neutralizing momentum. From the corner, Dundee had to constantly reassess strategy. What frustrated Dundee most was Benitez's composure. He didn't get rattled. He didn't overcommit. He turned boxing into a chess match, and chess matches in a brutal sport can be maddening. Though Leonard ultimately won, it was a tactical war. Benitez earned Dundee's respect, but his elusive style made him one of the most mentally draining opponents to prepare for. 8. Ken Norton. Ken Norton was awkward, and awkward can be dangerous. His unorthodox stance and cross-arm defense made him difficult to read. When he first fought Ali in 1973 and broke Ali's jaw, it sent shockwaves through boxing. For Dundee, that moment changed everything. Norton wasn't flashy, he wasn't loud, but he was physically imposing and tactically stubborn. His style disrupted Ali's rhythm, particularly with that looping right hand and physical strength inside. Dundee disliked facing fighters who didn't follow predictable patterns. Norton's angles were strange, his timing unconventional. Preparing for him meant drilling discipline repeatedly. What made it worse was that Norton proved it wasn't a fluke. Their rivalry remained competitive across multiple bouts. Each fight felt tense, close, and physically taxing. For Dundee, Norton embodied a specific frustration, a fighter who didn't look extraordinary but kept creating extraordinary problems. That kind of unpredictability lingers in a trainer's memory. 9. Carlos Monzon. Carlos Monzon carried a chilling calm into the ring. As middleweight champion, he defended his title 14 times, often dismantling opponents with clinical precision. For Angelo Dundee, Monzon represented controlled brutality. He wasn't overly emotional or flashy. Instead, he stalked opponents methodically, cutting off the ring and delivering accurate heavy shots. That composure made him difficult to outsmart. Fighters who fight emotionally can be baited. Monzon rarely could. Dundee valued rhythm and tactical adjustments, but Monzon rarely overextended. He forced mistakes instead of making them. His jab set up everything, and his timing was sharp enough to punish hesitation instantly. What made him frustrating was his patience. He could wait for rounds before landing the decisive blow. That level of discipline forced trainers to craft flawless game plans, and even then, execution had to be perfect. Monzon wasn't chaotic like Dern or explosive like Foreman. He was steady and calculating. And that cold efficiency made him one of the most uncomfortable matchups Dundee ever evaluated. 10. Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler was intensity personified. A relentless southpaw with granite chin and endless stamina, Hagler brought controlled aggression into every fight. When Sugar Ray Leonard agreed to face him in 1987 after years of retirement, many believed it was too risky. Dundee knew exactly how dangerous Hagler was. Hagler didn't just pressure, he suffocated. He cut off the ring with intelligence, switched stances when necessary, and threw combinations with bad intentions. He wasn't easy to outmuscle or outthink. From the corner, Dundee understood that Leonard couldn't trade toe-to-toe. The strategy required speed, angles, and mental discipline. Hagler's presence alone could intimidate fighters before the opening bell. What Dundee disliked most was Hagler's refusal to fade. Even in later rounds, he pushed forward relentlessly. There was no easy stretch, no mental break. The split decision victory remains controversial, but it stands as one of Dundee's greatest strategic triumphs. Still, facing Hagler demanded absolute precision. And in boxing, absolute precision under that kind of pressure is the hardest thing of all.